Now it's time for EEEZ Around the Table with your host, Easy, who I'm pretty sure is easier than me. Earmuffs, kids. Adults only. Just the way I like it.
Good evening,
and
everybody.
we're here. We're here. I had a little background there because I was listening to the show before me. They were Andrea and Phil, and they were having a great time. It was a fun show to listen to and watch, or just listen to, because I still think we're the only show to watch. But welcome, a Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, Lenny, Melnick, afantasysports.com, the Legend Sports Network. And this is the round table. Right now, it's a small table. I have Doug here with me that does the show on Saturday. Doug, thanks for joining me again. I appreciate it. Like I said, it's hard sometimes to know who's going to be here or how many's going to be at the beginning and everything. But how are you doing tonight?
If I'm free on Tuesday, there's no place I'd rather be than be on this show. I'm doing pretty good. Actually, today I was actually a little sick all day. But I'll be fine.
But you've been drafting. I think I paid attention in chat room, right? So you've been drafting. As long as you're drafting, you're always fine, right?
Well, I always wonder that because it seems like I really don't get sick except for when I have drafts to do.
Oh, so the draft is the issue, huh? Or is it just all the tension and the buildup?
I don't know. It's like I think back on years, like I'm always sick right around March 1st somewhere. Like that was the week I didn't feel good. Okay.
Well, I guess I wouldn't think that's uncommon, maybe. I think they've proven in the past that stress affects your immune system. So obviously, if you get stressed out over fantasy drafting, then maybe that's, part of it that you might be more likely to get sick.
I believe I enjoy drafting more than anything. It's a weird thing. When I was in college, I was at the later years of my college, I was like married, working full-time, managing a restaurant, and still going to school doing well. And it seemed like I was able to somehow subconsciously drive off all the illnesses until that week between semesters. And then as soon as I got that last final exam in, then I would just be knocked out for a week and then never had any good free time off.
Right. Well, just sometimes, even though you like it or don't like it, stress can come from stuff you like also. It's been a long time since I dated, but back in the day, a date you'd get stressful, over just something as simple as, a date. So
dating's you think it get easier. Dating at age 50 is even more stressful.
Oh, well, like I said, I haven't had to worry about that in a while. I have to sometimes worry about, Mother's Day gifts, birthdays, anniversaries, that kind of stuff. But, what I'm saying is just, you get excited about draft and you spend a lot of time. And if you're like me, the closer it gets to draft time, or, you end up staying up a little bit later, and, you're doing mock drafts. And next thing you know, I've started mock drafts before. And next thing I know, I've done like 4 and it's 2:30 in the morning. That kind of stuff, is probably not good for your immune system. So again, you like it, you still could get sick from it.
Yeah. I have a number of like, slow drafts that are going nonstop, and so I'll get pings on my phone at 3 a.m. Somebody drafted. Yeah, that can't be good for me to not sleep through the night like that.
Now I've gotten better. Obviously, football's my main game. Baseball, obviously baseball's a little different because you don't have that like Tuesday night, waiver wire things. Different leagues do different things. Obviously, there can be one night waivers. There can be, free agent can be all week long on there. But on football, there's early on, I would wake up at, 4:05 in the morning. Wouldn't even set an alarm. I just mentally would wake up, at 4:05 to see. And usually it wasn't opposite. I didn't worry about who I got. What I worried about is I knew I left some rooms to hopefully to pick up somebody that no one else picked up, and I'm like, okay, he made it through waivers. So, go ahead and pick him up now in free agency, that type thing. That way I don't waste a waiver spot, that kind of thing. So, I've done that in the past.
Yeah, no, I've done that too. I think everybody that's on a show on this network has done that.
Right. I think that's normal if you're into it, you know. Now, again, I think there's a lot of people that play fantasy that aren't into it that much. If you told them that, they'd go, that's stupid. You know, I mean, it's because they don't know. I mean, it's an advantage you can control, which is one of the reasons I like fantasy. Are there that there are factors that can be controlled? You know, you can outstudy somebody. You can, you can like I said, you can outwork them, just like football coaches will say.
My preference for fantasy leagues is to have, even in baseball, is to have only weekly waivers. You have daily lineups because you can change your team if you want, but you know that first guy to the floor drives me nuts after time. It like sort of it's a little bonus if you're unemployed.
Right. Well, or like I said, I'm at a computer all day, you know, so my job, I have access to machines, so I can do things. But even I have yet to play in a league where there was no free agency. You know, I've heard of them, meaning, you know what, it's all waivers, then it locks, and then the waivers the next day. So no one ever has that advantage. But I've never played in one that does that. Most of them run waivers. Then there's a certain amount of time for free agency, and then it locks again. Have you ever played in one that never had any free agency?
My personal, I always talk about I have two home leagues. There's the home league I play in, and there's the home league that I'm commissioner of. In the one that I'm commissioner of, there is no free agency period whatsoever. It's you pick up on the weekend. You know, you put in your picks on Saturday. They apply on Monday, and you go to every week with the same set of 28 guys or 29 guys, whatever it is. I we talk a lot about like what would bring like an outside person into the fantasy world, and one of the things is that normal fantasy is so complex. I find that even though that seems like a lot more rules, the fact that you only have to do it once a week really simplifies things. You know, your team, and especially in a league where you're playing head to head, that league's head to head, it really stinks. I mean, don't you hate it when you know you're coming into like Sunday game and you're down by, you're winning. Let's say you're in a head to head categories, you're winning say 6-5, and then on Sunday morning, the other guy gets up at 3 a.m, grabs 4 starting pitchers, and winds up getting 2 wins to beat you.
Right, but I mean, which is good, right? I mean, that's a good player should do those kind of things.
I know. I mean, a good player should know how to manipulate
Sure.
the rules to their advantage.
Right.
But the fact that rule's there is just not good in the first place. You know, it's like, so in the league that commission, it's like every week you go into the same 28 guys. Your 28 guys versus their 28 guys, however you want to do it. It makes a lot bigger difference in points leagues, which that league is, because in points leagues, you know, pitchers can get points just for innings, and it's very easy for you can have a fairly mediocre pitcher give you the equivalent of a pretty good hitting day.
Right. I've been one of those players. And again, I'm newer to baseball than football. I'm only in my 3rd year of baseball, but I do have a tendency to always want innings, always want players. I struggle with, empty slots. And it has bit me before, because obviously I've dropped players I shouldn't, to fill a slot. And so I have learned over the years that it's not necessarily always, a good thing. So, but that's back to also watching where your standings are, watching what if you're going to make the playoffs or not. I mean, because if it's close at that point, it doesn't matter. You got to make moves. So
I do the same thing. If I'm in a 28-man roster team, I use all 28 spots, and I don't feel like I have enough. If I'm in a 30, I'll not feel like I have enough. If I'm in a 40, I'll not feel like I have enough.
Right.
I'll use every piece of that to be part of the game.
Right. DK Luce is saying out there in chat room, right, playing time is key, and I agree. But at the same time, like I said, it's bitten me before, because I've dropped players on a Saturday or Sunday hoping to get a couple innings, or, an extra player if someone's sitting, and, again, hoping I'll pick them back up, and then you don't, and, you end up losing now, again, I'm not saying cut great players, but, you drop somebody that you picked up a couple weeks ago thinking he'd be good, and he's been okay, but you dropped him, and then he takes off right after, you dropped him to get somebody who you really were only picking up for one day just to get a start, especially if they're starting in certain situations, that's harder to pass up when you see a pitcher that's going to start against Kansas City, or somewhere, or they're in a stadium that's a pitcher stadium. You know what I'm saying? So you drop them for one day, and then you don't get them back, and that can be killer. So, I don't know. I said I've just never played in a league that was all, no free agency time at any point.
I was actually on today. I mean, I was in the chat room when Chacha was doing his show, and he was saying, he was complaining about, people taking all this time in their drafts and whatever. And when I designed the league that I designed to be commissioner of, when I was booted out of my home league as commissioner, the biggest thing I wanted to do was get my brother back to playing, right? And my brother has this thing about time frames. I mean, he's a school teacher at a virtual school that goes virtual school, has no summer vacations, you teach all year long. He's recently married, recently has a child. They have a 7-year-old child. He doesn't have a lot of free time. So I was trying to design a league that would maximize the free time. It still takes commitment, because this is fantasy baseball. This is hard shit.
Right.
Hard stuff. But it would take the littlest commitment as possible. And that weekly waiver wires is one of the key tenets of that. It's like, you can go in on a Sunday night, you can go in on a Saturday night, spend 25 minutes deciding who your pickups are. Of course, you got to go back in on Sunday to see who you got. You can set your lineups for the week, and then you can just watch the games as a fan and see how things play out.
Right.
Versus, this guy coming up here, or a guy getting a spot start there.
Well, I had that as another question down here as far as a topic, and I don't know what the two of us, but because you brought it up, and that's the daily moves versus weekly moves. That's the same way. Some people say the weekly moves, that way someone doesn't have to tie up a bunch of time or watch their leagues all the time. But at the same time, the daily moves, is more, I think it's more enjoyable when I can do things every day.
Yeah.
Me and you consider new players. What do you think a new player would prefer?
Well, that's why I was trying to hypothetically think it through in my head. It's like, I think there's a simplicity of saying you set your week on Monday and you let it go. The negative side is, and you're more of a football player than that. It's like, in a football game, the worst thing that can happen to you is your quarterback is injured in the first quarter, right?
Oh, right. Right. Anytime you get a 0 or
like a 1 or something.
Yeah, right.
It's like, wait, I was expecting to get 22 points on this guy. I got 2,
Right.
In baseball, you have the same sort of thing. Like, what happens if on Tuesday your guy gets injured, doesn't play for the rest of the week? It's like, the thing that we can do in baseball is we can say, okay, you can set your lineups. You can change your lineup. Now, that would mean if you had a backup quarterback, let's say, or in baseball, let's say your third baseman got hurt, you have a backup third baseman, you can put that guy in. But you can't necessarily go to the waiver wire to do it. You have to manage your entire roster. You have generally 3 to 5 to 8 backup spots. It makes guys like Marwin Gonzalez that have multiple eligibility worth a little bit more.
Right.
But if you were a new guy, I think that you'd be put off if you lost your week just because your guy got hurt on Tuesday. Or,
well, it seems like, I don't know if it's the new rule or whatever. I don't know. I didn't recall it the year before, but it seemed like this year, everybody the DL stuff all got set on Tuesday. After we set our leagues on Sunday night or Monday night, depending on the league, it's like every Monday morning is when you'd get the announcement that so-and-so is on the 10-day. It's like, what? It's like, why can't they tell us that, stuff on Saturday night? And obviously that's why I don't like the Sunday set, which most do. And I understand why, because new series start on Monday, but it just kind of sucks that you're locked in. I don't know. Have you ever played a league where that set time is, I don't know. I guess you could do it. You have to have a time, but
different than Sunday.
I don't know. But
it's historically on the weekend because that's where historically more people have time off to do things with.
Is that why it is, or is it because that's when new series start and people want to do things? There's new. I assumed it was just because Monday usually teams are in different locations and different situations, but.
I've been playing baseball and football since before the advent of computers, and in those days, you made your own rules on these sorts of things. And
right.
And so, we always sort of had a midweek day. Just like I said, the series, you had your lineup set for Monday, you would have to have your lineup set on Thursday for the rest of the weekend, right? It's like when the computers came along, it became 10,000 times easier to run a fantasy league. but you had to deal with their parameters, and most leagues don't have a parameter for. Most websites don't have a parameter for a midweek, change the lineup. Only a midweek change the lineup. I know Fantrax does. They have a lot of weird stuff on that one, but Yahoo's the biggest site. ESPN's the second biggest site. They don't have it. So you deal with what you have. Either that, or you're going to be typing in thousands of numbers like we used to do. And like those days, although I'm wistful about them on a romantic level, I'm so glad they're gone.
Right.
The good old days when you and two other guys in your league were crunching numbers for the week.
Right. Like I said, I'm still, I don't know, maybe it's the football player in me. I like the daily moves. I like to get up in the morning and
I'm sort of giving a compromise there. It's like you can change your team daily, just only within the realm of what your roster is.
I got you. You can't pick up anybody. You just can set. I got you.
Yeah. So if you're
right, I see. Right. So if your first baseman gets put on the DL, you set it up, which I think happened last year. I'm going to say I could be wrong. Votto, you have him in your lineup, you set him on Monday morning, and then Monday night they come out and say, oh, he's on the 10-day, and you're like, dang it. You could at least go ahead and put in another first baseman. You just can't pick up anybody off There's no waivers, is what you're saying during the week.
Yeah,
no free agents even.
I played in, like, people are talking about that the fantasy baseball invitational. I played in a so-called experts league last year where it was like you set your lineup for the week on Monday and you couldn't do any kind of changes whatsoever. And I came in 5th place out of 15. And at the end of the year, I look at my team and I'm saying, like, my hitters batted in 188 less games than the 5 teams ahead of me, the 4 teams ahead of me. Mm-hmm. Like had I gotten just in the same ballpark of at bats, I would have won the league. And I'm not blaming them or saying that they have it's a bad title for the other guy. It's like that's something that I have no control over. It's how many times that I had Cubs guys that were, early in the season where the game was colded out, and how many times a guy's wife went into labor on a Wednesday and I missed 4 days of play. And I'm not knocking the kids for having that stuff, but it's like I just didn't get enough. I did not get enough at bats in, and that's the difference on those things. And so by having some flexibility throughout the week where you can change out for those problems, I think is key to not make the new guy just throw his hands in the air like, what the hell can I do?
Sure. I mean, like I said, but it is still just, what I've learned is you just figure out the rules, work around them as much as you can. And better players like probably me and you will still make it work for us. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we'll still make it work better for us than the guy who isn't. And that's what I've learned. We set up all these rules to make it easier for the guys that don't know much, but they still don't take advantage of what they can, and the better players will. So to me, I think if you make more rules easier and more available, they'll take advantage of some. And better players like us will take advantage of all, and that still gives us somewhat of an advantage. But I don't like locking little, young players into, a bunch of, hard to work around rules. That's why I kind of like, okay, waivers are in baseball can vary, but let's say, Sunday, Wednesday, Friday, or once a week even, but free agents can be forever or whatever. And hey,
I just think if you're trying to convert somebody who isn't a normal fantasy baseball player, it's easier to tell them if you play your game right in most situations, you only have to check your lineup once or twice a week, versus you better be on here every day, some cases twice a day. Right. I think it puts out. It's like when I'm pitching a guy to join my fantasy league, my baseball league, I'm saying this is going to be the most amount of work you're ever going to have fun doing. Well,
but I wouldn't sell that early on, because
I want to let them know that there's going to be some work to it. Like
there's, I mean, obviously, I'm not saying Andrea is one of those. Andrea will work hard, but Andrea also will tell you if you work hard before the draft and you set up, and you draft the team well, that the rest of the season might not be as much work as, if you screwed up your draft. So
I know that from my experience in baseball, that can happen sometimes. Things can just kind of click. In football, you can't pull that off. I mean, you have to be hitting the waiver wires every week. You know,
well, I agree. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I'm also saying a new player to get involved in a $20 league, you know, if you tell you know what, hey, you know, you draft well, you know, pay a little bit of attention and you can make it work. I guess, like I said, that's what I thought originally, you know, and then I did okay, but then I learned if I, you know, do a little better, I'll get even better. So
I once in a football league thought, I don't want to give this as much because I'm not a big. I would rather be outside doing something on Saturday and Sunday than watching football. And and truth is, I'd rather be out doing something than watching baseball too. But on the days that I'm in, and I'd rather watch sports on a Tuesday night than on a Sunday afternoon. That's me, right? So one year I decided in football that I would draft everybody on my team. I'd draft the best possible team with everybody having like the week 9 bye. So I could just kind of like ride through the week, you know, ride through and not screw with the bye thing, which drives me nuts in that. So I did that, and week 9 came around. I scored like 14 points, got beat 170-12 or whatever.
Right.
But every other week is there. So, you know, and I'm in the playoffs. I was whatever. I had 2 or 3 losses. And in the first round, I played a guy that had basically just rode the waiver wire all week long. And he's got a bunch of guys that I'd never heard of. And he beat me. Not by a lot, but by a standard amount. You know, the score was
right.
Like 165 to 145. It's like you have to sort of, you know, in football, you have to know the how much time a person is getting today. You sort of need to ride the waiver wire just to keep your attention where it needs to be a competitive team in the playoffs. That was what I learned from that one year. It was a whole lot of fun just going, all right, you guys screw around with other stuff. I'll just take week 9 off. I thought I was brilliant. And I was sort of, you know.
Right. You thought you could make it work.
Yeah.
There, Cha-Cha wanted the chick in the background. I give him, I think DK Lush out there for shooting me a quick.
He's saying he wants you to move your head a little bit to the left.
I do my best, Cha-Cha. I do my best. So, but you know, yeah, Cha-Cha makes fun that I change my you know, backgrounds during the show. And I actually tonight I thought I'd try to get better and leave it alone, but obviously it's too much fun. I mean, and I'm not saying this because it's you. With me and you talking with one person, I really don't have to control us. I don't have to worry about the argument or anything like that, or ignoring somebody who's not going to talk. So while you're talking, I'm able to actually do a few things. So it actually makes it a little nice that it's just 2 of us. Which a reminder, I guess I'll post the link back out there if anybody wants to, you know, join in. You know, the round table. I think me and Chuck did it one time. So this probably would be the second show maybe where it's just been 2 of us. But hey, and me and you have talked off the air sometimes just as long, not quite the 2 hours of a show, but
I could do it. I'm well rested. I told you I was sick today, so I got a good
right.
nap in.
You have a lot more energy going there.
And I got my coffee in one thing and then the mystery drink in the other, and you know, I'll be good.
Right. But see, Cha-Cha, I think, you know, I get it. Cha-Cha's, you know, Cha-Cha wants this to be professional. I'm trying to be as professional as I can be. But on YouTube, people listening to us in the chat room, no one's watching the video. No one would know what's going on in my background. So it doesn't really matter. The YouTube people, hey, you know what? I think, you know, a little video change. We're just talking heads. So a little background change never hurt anybody, I don't think. So
have you watched any spring training games? Anything interesting?
No, I don't. That's a topic of mine too. Again,
I thought it was just.
I don't know. Again, I struggle with topics back to when there's just 2 people. Obviously, you know, it's harder to get what me and you would either debate or argue over, whatever. I'm not a spring training baseball guy any more than I'm a preseason football guy. Meaning I don't feel I have to watch any of the games. I listen to all the reports and the news, you know, and the stuff the next day for injuries. So yeah, to me, it's things that don't happen. You know, it's back to the 5 hits the other day.
Byron Buxton.
Yeah. Who cares? Doesn't matter to me whatsoever. Won't move him up. And I mean, now I guess if he did that every day, every game he plays from now to spring training, probably still won't make me move him up a whole lot. But if he went 0 for 5 every game of the spring training, I'd drop him a lot. My point is, I think the negative at spring training means a whole lot more than the positives. Am I wrong?
Yeah, no, I guess you're right. Yeah, it's like if someone does something really great. I mean, the other guy, one down from Larry Buxton on my list is Michael Franco is having a good spring training, and that's a guy that's been twisting with people for years. Like, is he going to be good or not? I don't know. It's like he scares me off. But if a guy is showing that he can't, if he's striking out 30% of the time in spring training and that stuff, like, yeah, that's gonna hit you really bad.
Right. I think the negative also can affect them from their own team. I mean, I think coaches make changes based on that. And they might even try other players out of positions, things like that. I just don't think.
I have being a Floridian, and I live in what used to be, I haven't lived in Florida all my life. I lived there for 5 years in this stint, and I went here for college and got married. So I lived there for 8 years before. So I have strong ties to this, but that's going back to the 90s. And going to spring training used to be really, really a whole lot of fun because it was like the only thing you got. Right. There wasn't a team in Tampa yet. Not that really matters. But it used to be decent baseball at an affordable price. And, I would spend a weekend, I drive down and, see a game in Sarasota and Port St. Lucie and Bradenton.
Oh, I think if I could go to a preseason game, that's different. I'm just not going to watch them on TV. I mean, I'm not going to get excited. Now, at work, during the day, I'll put some things on just because I can glance up and watch.
But it's because of the fact that it's part of the culture that I live in.
Right.
I give spring training a little more nod than you do, but it's mostly because of those fond memories. For what it's worth, it's not as much fun to go to spring training anymore because a ticket costs $28 and you get to see the good players, especially like I live close to the Braves. It's the only the National moved out of Titusville 2 years ago, and the Astros moved out of Kissimmee, which were the close ones last year. So the Braves are the only team that's here. Every other team has to take a bus 35 minutes. So you go see a Braves game, you'll see the best Braves players play for an inning. For the opposing team, because it's such a pain in the ass to be on a bus for 90 minutes of the game, all the good players fight really hard not to even come to the games. You almost always get split spot games. It's not really even worth going to those games at Champion Stadium. And this will be the last year that the Braves will be at Champion Stadium. And Disney, they're going to move down south too. So We're going to be without the closest to me next year will be the Tigers in Lakeland, which isn't a bad drive.
Right. But the other good thing about spring training and this network, the Legend Sports Network, Lenny Melnick, FantasySports.com, and the baseball knowledge is out there is because if you're just watching ESPN for spring training, you don't hear the bad things. They're showing the crazy plays. They're showing the home runs. They're showing, again, all the positives. But to me, the negatives are the most important for this time of year to follow for fantasy. And again, you're not going to get that anywhere except somewhere where Lenny is following every game and going, hey, so-and-so's gone 0 for 5, 4 games in a row. To me, those are important things, not the guy that went, like I said, had a great game or hit 3 home runs or whatever. I don't know. Did you see? I didn't see all the details because I just caught it as a blurb, and it was a college game. But did you see the kid who technically hit for the cycle in home runs?
It was a girls softball game.
Okay. That's what. Okay, so girl, right? She hit you're right. I recall the video. Right, she had a grand slam, a 3-run homer, a 2-run homer, a single, and I mean, pretty cool. And now, see, that's the thing. Right now, I am watching some college baseball.
I like college baseball. I actually like college softball.
Well, the thing is, right now though, those games are real. Wright State, my college, they're down in Florida playing. And I'll count them on a few, weird, their Wright State channel. UD, I've watched a UD game. Big Ten baseball, I'll grab here and there. So right now, I'd much rather watch any of that than I would watch a preseason baseball game.
It's like when you tune into a preseason game, like you tune in for the first 30, the first 2 innings. Is all you really watch and go, Miguel Cabrera looks healthy enough, and whatever, you have that one little question in your head. It's like, I mean, you say Kikuchi threw his first pitches against live batting. That was something I wanted to watch, and he looked very good doing it. We'd never seen the guy before. That's worth watching on spring training.
Right.
But once you get past that, I mean, he made Joey Votto look like an idiot. You should Google that. He made Votto look bad.
That's fine. But again, that doesn't translate. That's still my argument. It doesn't translate, to anything later on. And if anything, some people's argument would be someone who goes 5 for 5 or Joey Votto looking at an idiot or, like that. Joey Votto's not dumb if he faces him in the regular season. Why would you give away anything? That's my other problem. I don't think even in spring training, pitchers are doing things to get outs all the time either. So,
well, I mean, we the way I look at baseball is that there's a big push toward the analytics, and I know the math,
right? Right.
But there's still the eye test. Sometimes you look at the math and go, "This guy should be a good hitter," and you look at him and go, "He's not." Or sometimes vice versa. It's like there's something about the way this guy approaches the strike zone that's better than his numbers say, and that's where you find the little thing. It's like,
right?
Honestly, you have no film on Yusei Kikuchi. This is the first thing you have it on, and so don't get me wrong. He might not be that good, but the first impression is good. That's what I say. I think that a lot of people are in leagues are drafting Yusei Kikuchi, round pick 105, 110. And I think that based on what I saw in one game, that just doesn't seem unreasonable. I wouldn't move him up to the 4th round or something, but you get what I'm getting at.
Well, again, he's somebody not on my radar, at this time. So it depends, if he's in round, to me, if spring training is going to change anybody, it's going to change those guys that you might be picking in round 20, or 18 or later, where you go, hey, you know what? I just want to make sure I get this guy. So I want to move him up to round 10 or 12.
I mean, well, I think
because you don't want somebody else might kind of have him, and it can be, and maybe I went too far from 20 to 10, but I'll move somebody when it gets later in a draft. I'm more willing to reach than at the beginning of a draft. So only because I want to make sure I get them. And if there's unfortunately, it just takes one other guy to be on him for you not to get, players that you bump up like that.
Agreed. But there are situations where they're higher end players that you're looking at, but it's mostly because of either battling for playing time or questions of injury. It's like, I am very curious, and I haven't seen it, but I'm going to tune into an Angels game sometime this week when Justin Upton plays. I want to see if Justin Upton can run.
Right.
Playing a patellar tendonitis, I want to see it for myself how bad that is, because it makes a difference. It makes a difference. If you have bad legs, it's harder to plant to get the kind of the kind of bat speed that you want. It's hard to run, whatever. It's like I think that's a situation where there's a guy that right now is getting pick 55, but if I look at him, I would drop him 4 rounds. Just
right. DK Lush is saying last year Acuna was one of the people that he moved up.
Yeah.
And that's my point. You get on a few of those people, and you move them up. So I mean, I have no problem with that. So. And I know out there in the chat room, just quick thing out there. I know we've had Andrea and Phil was in there earlier. We have Cha Lou, DK Lush. So a little bit of action out there. The next thing and I'll ask you, you've been into baseball for a while, but something came up around here that I found interesting. I'm not the historian or know, a whole lot. But, and because both of these families have ties to Cincinnati, when we talk about the greatest of all time, baseball families, the Boones have had, 3 generations of baseball players. They had a 4th, which this would be history. They had a 4th generation kid drafted. He elected to forego his spot and is playing, I think, at Princeton. I could be wrong. I know it's one of the big, it's an Ivy League school. So he didn't take I don't know how it works. I'd assume they have, he goes back to the draft next year. But there's a chance that would be the first and only 4th generation baseball family. So that dawned on me, and obviously the Boones have some history, all the way back for the Reds, because Bob Boone played a little bit here in Cincinnati. And then obviously we had Brett Boone for a little bit before he went to New York. So, you know, the Boones here. The other family that was pretty big in baseball is the Bell family, which also Gus Bell was back for the Reds, but they've only gone 3 generations and they're done. They skipped a generation, so they can't do it. I mean, 4 generations, and I looked it up. In baseball, basketball, and football, that's doing 3 generations is pretty tough. But 4 generations, this family has the option, you know, that could become a reality here in a year or two. I think that's kind of amazing.
I know that when I watched last year's Major League Baseball draft, some kid was drafted who was either the great grandson of either Ty Cobb or Lou Gehrig.
I think it was Ty Cobb. I think Ty Cobb had like a great grandson or something like that.
But there was no in between generations.
But that's my point. That doesn't count then. I mean, the Boos will do it 4 generations, meaning they will not skip a generation. I mean, that because, and if anything, I don't want to say this. I mean, I get that you can have good training. I get you can have family. You know, my problem is even with baseball, you're not born with any baseball skill. You can physically be born with some football and basketball advantages, but in baseball, you're not born physically with any advantage. You have to learn the game. Does that make it more likely that a 4th generation thing happens like this, or does it make it less likely? Meaning, you know, he's not going to be born a baseball player. They're going to make him into one. I think that's even harder. You have an opinion on that?
I think that being born into a family that has any kind of profession in their life makes it easier to get in that profession because you're familiar with all the intangible stuff that's required to be part of the profession. You know,
but lots of kids are born to great players and never make it.
No, they don't. They have to have some level of talent, mind you. But I'm just thinking that gives you that little bit of an advantage. Plus, you know, the other part about it is, especially in the modern age, and I think this is a bigger thing than anything, is you know, I told you I coach at Maitland Little League, right? And for a while, one of our coaches was Dante Bichette Sr. was a coach for one of our teams. Mm-hmm. It's like Bo Bichette and Dante Bichette Jr. both played for that. And in order to play baseball as a 13 or 14-year-old at the highest level, you need to have an awful lot of money. And Dante Bichette Sr. had that kind of money.
Money is definitely changing
to do it. And so it's like you sit there and go, and you know, D. Gordon, you know, Tom Gordon's kids, D. Gordon and Nick Gordon, who I talk about. Like I talk to Nick Gordon on a regular basis. He went to college with my brother. It's like those guys, you know, come from a family where they go, all right, do this, you know, and because there's enough money.
Yeah,
in there.
But that's my point, though. It still requires a child to want to do it. It also, I mean, hey, I'm just saying, baseball's been around a long time. Well, I mean, this is the first time it's happened, and it might be the only time it will happen.
Well, I'm saying that it's kind of peculiar to baseball because, I mean, you follow other sports. How many really great sports families are there in other sports?
Well, it doesn't happen. That's my point. I mean, when I did it, I mean, and some people, I would say it's even a little different, but not much. NASCAR and baseball. You're not born a driver. You're not born a baseball player.
And NASCAR is a family sport.
Well, but in NASCAR, it's pretty common for families to do well in NASCAR because the kids are learning to drive at such a young age and it keeps going. But at the same time, it's still there's still a lot of great drivers that have had kids that don't make it. You know, I mean, it's still not a guarantee. So the kid has to have some skill, has to have some desire, and then obviously the parents that are willing to push him there. You know, I mean, it's just and even in those sports, 4 generations is rare. That's my point. 3 generations is rare, and we have a shot at having 4 generations, and no one's talking about it. And I get it. No one really cares. Maybe
in your research, I know that there's like the I mean, there's the Alou brothers, right? And then there's a couple.
And his dad. There was a dad and 2 brothers.
There's a couple,
and an uncle. I think there was at one point 4 Alous that played within like a 30-year frame.
There were a couple other last names that were related to them too. Like it wasn't just the Alous. It was like they were cousins with. God,
I think when I did it, the Alous might be one of the other families that had 3 generations.
Yeah, because there were a couple other last names that were like I know Vatapinson was somehow related to them, but there was a different last name. There's a guy that used to close for the Cubs back in the '80s, and he was related to those guys too, but he had a different last name. And it doesn't. He's a guy that actually, like, during a spring training game, I didn't realize how close I was to him when he was doing his warm-ups. I said, "Boy, that guy didn't look very good." And he said, "Get down here and throw a ball or something." He like insulted me. It's like that's the cool thing with spring training. You're that close.
You just keep talking. I'm looking it up real quick.
You know,
third generation baseball families. The Boones are at the top. Then you have the Bells. Then you have the Colemans. Then you have the Harrisons. Then you have the Schofields and the Worst. Now, unfortunately, the thing I had the other day actually gave me years. The Colemans I know, the Harrison and the Worst, I have no idea. The Boones and the Bells I know. Now, obviously, they're also had Ohio/Cincinnati things. Like I said, fourth generation, there's none except the Boones. They have a chance. Now, when you go fathers and sons, that's pretty common. Yeah, Philippe Alou, Moises Alou. I was looking for second generation. I thought I saw a spot where, because the Alous don't even show up as a third generation.
Yeah, so I think they switched last names. It's like it's like,
yeah, but I think this still would have told me that. Obviously, you know, you had the Griffeys, you know. Yeah, they're not showing, I guess, because second generation's too common. So they're not showing. They're just narrowing it down to fathers and sons. There is a third generation umpire family, which is pretty cool. You know, because obviously that is 100% learned, right? I mean, you don't have to have, you can still have a kid or a parent or a grandfather teach you baseball. You still have to have some skill. You know what I mean? You have to have something in you that makes you that. I mean, do you have to have any skill to be an umpire other than the desire to be one?
I think have you ever? I've umpired. I was actually I was accredited for the Florida FCS, Florida Christian High Schools, for basketball and for baseball, and you know it takes some effort, and they'll only remember when you get something wrong, and you're going to get things wrong.
Sure, but to me that is just desire. If you have the desire, you could probably, and Dad's going to obviously having the name of your father and being in there already won't hurt you. But
I imagine that the umpire gig is probably so good because those guys get paid at the umpire at the referee level as much as anyone, that having a dad in the business probably gets your foot in the door.
Right.
At that point, I bet you that there are 15 applicants for every one spot, and I think I might be being a little bit conservative there.
Right.
Having you know, being, you know, Harry Wendell said, you know, junior
junior
it's gonna be, because they're a senior and a junior. That's why
I don't know. I already shut the thing down. I just saw where it said there was one. There's multiple umpire father and sons, but there was one third generation. So I don't know. I'm just back to what started this was. Do you find this, based on what research I did, the Boones being a fourth generation in any sport makes them maybe the athletic GOAT family? That's kind of what I'm saying. Is there a greater family accomplishment that can go, you know, over those years? And we can argue
there used to be those.
They all have been okay player. I mean, Gus Bell isn't, or Bob Boone. I'm trying to think of the first Boone. But you know, they were all relevant players. The Boone brother, well, the four Boone the three that have played, and then this kid coming if he makes it. You know, the three generations of Boones. I think there's been a total of 4 players because Aaron and his brother both played some.
Yeah.
And you had Bob. What was Grandpa's name? Do you have that off the top of your head without?
I want to say it was Gus, but that's not right. It's
no, Gus is Bell. That's right. Yeah. It's Gus Bell. I'll have to. I already zapped it out.
It comes to this. Like, there used to be like these bar bet jokes. Like, you would bet somebody, you know, on like a statistic, right? It comes down to how much you value how good those people are individually. The old joke was like, what brother combination has the most career home runs? right?
Right. It's the Aarons.
It's the Aarons because Tommy Aaron had like 11.
Right. Right.
His brother, and so it's like do the accomplishments of the Boone family as a whole add up to what Babe Ruth did on his own?
Right.
You know,
Right.
and so you take that out. Does it add up to what Hank and Tommy Aaron did together, or any of these numbers where there's the big one to me is like, how do you get better than possibly the best player of all time? It's an argumental thing, but in the discussion is Barry Bonds, and then his dad was a very good baseball
Bobby Bonds. I watched Bobby Bonds. Bobby Bonds was a great baseball player.
It's like, you could take the Bells and the Boones and
let me give you the names of why I have it up here. The Bells are Gus, Buddy, and then you had David and Mike. Both played at the same time. Those are sons of Buddy. The Boones, Ray Boone would be grandpa. Ray Boone. Then you had Bob Boone, and then you had Brett and Aaron Boone. So 3 of the Boones have played with the Reds at some point. And then we had Gus and Buddy Bell both played. Gus Bell was a major part of the Reds back in the 40s, I think. I mean, something like that. So
I remember David Bell is more of an Indians guy, but that might have been just the period that I remember him from.
Right. Well, David, American League baseball player. Oh no, he also played for the Cincinnati Reds. He played Bell appeared Cleveland, St. Louis Cardinals, Cincinnati Reds. They have a list here. But what I'm just saying, all I'm saying is we can come up with father and sons, we can come up with brothers, we can come up with whatever, but my research shows me that if this next Boone makes it in the bigs, and obviously, like you just said, the Aarons, for this to become a historical event, he just has to play, I don't know, a few games. I don't even know what makes him when do you technically become a professional baseball player? Is it just one game? I don't know. But I'd assume if he makes it through his college without getting hurt, there's a chance he goes on. I'm assuming at this point that, a team will take him just to give him a shot to just say, hey, we had a 4th generation kid play on our team. And with the Boones, it could be the Reds, a team like that, where they say, hey, we've had we had a brother, we had a dad, or we had a dad and a grandpa. Why don't we get the grandson? But
I'm certain it would be a little bit of a talking point and something that would be a draw, at least for a little bit.
I just thought it was interesting.
I remember when Pete Rose had, Pete Rose Jr.
Pete Rose's son the Reds sucked. The Reds sucked then, and that was a way to get a few people at the stands.
Yeah, it was interesting for a moment. That's it. I still have the baseball card. Commemorating that.
Right. But now that being said, when we go back, Father, and see, my argument would be, you're right, the Bonds, obviously, it'd be back to, Ken Griffey Sr. and Jr. If you combine them together, a pretty good, father-son, unit.
I'd probably put them second to the Bonds, unless something comes up that I'm not missing.
So then let's go back then. So would you put Barry Bonds ahead of Junior?
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I don't think it's by leaps and bounds, but Barry Bonds, if you took out any negative, if you said like, I'm perfectly okay with somebody using every means necessary to be as good a baseball player as possible, that guy would be one of the every argument, every show in the history of the planet would be just like it's LeBron versus Michael, it would be Bonds versus Ruth. And there'd be no other discussion.
Right. And obviously the drugs make that's the problem. People can't throw that out there. But that being said here, I give Ken Griffey Jr. the edge in defense. Meaning if I'm drafting, if defense,
Bonds was a really good defender.
He was very good. Ken Griffey Jr. was great.
But he also had the same problem that he was great until he got to about age 31.
Well, okay. That's true. I keep forgetting, right. The Pittsburgh years, he was a hell of an outfielder.
I mean, I'll give Griffey the edge on that, but I'm not just like
not by much.
Yeah, not by as much as people might say.
Yeah,
Griffey had injury problems that kept him from being a great fielder for a long time.
And then you take, and you're probably right then. So I would put Bobby Bonds a little bit, ahead of Ken Griffey Senior, because Ken Griffey
Ken Griffey Senior had a
Senior was part of the Big Red Machine, which kind of, you're only going to look so good when you're on that team. But he was an all-star a few times. He played a long time. He stayed healthy. He didn't bat for great average, but he was average. He didn't. He was an okay. I mean, he actually at one time. I mean, he was a really great outfielder for a few years too.
My first real memory of baseball, where I first really enjoyed it, was the '75 World Series, and so I could actually say that I was sort of a Reds fan before I was a Cubs fan, before I was aware of it, and so I know that team really well. And Griffey hit career 297, and it was pretty close to 300. And he was a good player. I mean, he's a very good player. Is Bobby Bonds, on the other hand, I mean, that guy had so much power and so much speed. I mean, they basically invented the 30-30 stat because this was the first guy that was truly five-tool.
Right.
And I'm going to give him the advantage. It doesn't make Ken Griffey a bad player. It just means that he's not at the same level. And that's
right. What other, if we're talking other families, again, you're better at that than me. I obviously I'm a Reds guy and I was into the Reds more than other. I'm trying to think of other great families in baseball.
The other name related to Luz was Rojas.
Right.
Pitcher was Mel Rojas, and there was Cookie Rojas from years back.
But again, that doesn't make them they all could have played in the same generation, though. That unfortunately, that's the problem. I think a group of those all played at the same time. It wasn't another generation. What about the Negros? I know it's not father-son, but it obviously is two great pitchers from the same family.
Yeah, that's an impressive one because Joe Nick.
Both of them.
Joe Niekro was a very good pitcher. Those guys are both knuckleballers. Phil Niekro is a Hall of Famer and deserves it. And because those guys were pitching in the era where a pitcher would throw 300 innings and make 37 starts. It's hard to really compare that to what people are doing nowadays. I mean, there would be one train of thought to say that that could very easily say Max Scherzer doesn't hold a candle to those guys. I'm not saying I believe that per se, but
right,
these guys. It's what would Max Scherzer do if he had to pitch an extra 100 innings? Could he put together an 18-year career? Or Phil Niekro's was 24 years, wasn't it?
Right. Now, just quick, because I Googled it real quick. Tony Gwynn and Tony Gwynn Jr.
Yeah, if Gwynn Jr. didn't have much of a career.
I would agree. I'm just looking at, obviously we've named the ones that are most popular. I mean, Barry and Bobby, the Griffeys, Eddie Collins and Eddie Collins Sr. Are those?
Yeah, those guys are really good, but you're talking about the 1920s.
Right. A whole different era.
Yeah, it's most people aren't very.
Then obviously
Eddie Collins Sr. might be the best second baseman of all time.
They have the Alomars. Now, and we have the Vlad Guerreros now. Now obviously everyone's already got his son in the Hall of Fame. But obviously, if he does what everyone, I just want to vomit every time that I see him taken before the fifth round. But because I've done this long enough, I'm not even the baseball guy. I'm the fan. But I've been doing this so long of a fan of baseball. If you gave me a nickel for every greatest player of all in any sport, the greatest player to ever come around, and they're talking about that in his rookie year, and then he just doesn't do much. I mean, happens a lot, but he obviously has the ability to be, to add to this list of great father and son duos.
Oh, no doubt. There's no doubt that it's true.
Right. But what about the Canseco brothers? There was a big,
This is the great. My favorite thing is I've gone to probably 600 baseball games in my life. In probably 200 or 300 of them, I brought my mitt with me. The only baseballs I've ever caught, one, and it was hit by Ozzie Canseco.
I'm not a baseball collector guy. I don't even, I know. I mean, I don't even, I remember the day that I saw the dad die. I'm going to say that was a St. Louis game, but I could be wrong. And I just shake my head. I'm amazed that people move 2 seats to catch a damn $8 baseball. But to die over one is maybe one of the most asinine things I've ever seen. Again, I'm not laughing at death, and I love my children, but I'm not going to die to get them a damn $8 baseball. But
I was a sack worker for a long time, right? And there's this guy. I'll just give his first name. There was this guy who was a millionaire. He had $3 million invested in me, and we'd go to sporting events. And the girls would come out with like the T-shirt gun, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this guy'd go nuts for the
same thing. $5 T-shirts.
I'm like, Mark, you've got $3 million with me, right? You have a guy at Merrill Lynch. You got a guy over at Goldman Sachs too. I have no idea which one you got. You could pretty much buy every shirt you wanted.
Right? People go nuts.
Going nuts.
People go nuts. Now, like I said, I go to a lot of Dragons games. If I'm happen to be where a foul ball is coming within a few seats of me, I'll raise my hand, and if I catch one, I catch one. I am not reaching over. I'm not bending over. I'm not falling backwards. I'm not spilling my damn beer to catch a baseball. Now Arnie's out there giving us names, so let's don't go on. He's given the Boons, which I don't know if he's out there. We already talked about the Boons. He's talking about the Perrys. Gaylord and Jim Perry. That's another very good.
Gaylord's a little better than Phil. Jim Perry was a little worse than Joe Necro. But yeah, I kind of grouped the Necros and Perrys together.
Right. And I'm trying to think. I don't know why I'm still thinking.
Bumpin' Maury Wills. They used to be the stolen base guys. Remember?
Yeah. Now you say that. Now, I actually enjoy listening to it on TV. You have Tony Perez's kid came up and played some. I want to say he played 4 or 5 years, and now he's an announcer on, I think, the NFL Network, one of the networks. He's one of their, including ESPN, huh?
NFL?
No, football. Tony Perez's kid.
He does football.
No, he doesn't.
Oh, that's right. You just misspoke. That's all. I thought you said NFL.
Oh, I might have said, maybe. Hey.
That's all right. I want to be clear. I'm not familiar with it.
Right. Tony Perez's kid came up and played. Again, he was no superstar. But he at least, he put in some time. He was a regular and played. We're forgetting somebody. The 2 big guys, the first baseman.
The first baseman.
White Sox. Home runs. Why am I thinking? Where am I?
First baseman on the White Sox.
I'm thinking. I could be wrong. Totally wrong.
I remember there was Carlos May and Lee May.
No, but one of them has a ton of home runs. Thomas's, right. DK Lucius put on there, right. That's 2 generations, right? It wasn't Thomas, a junior and a senior?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, we are. Give me a first name, DK Lucius. Right. Frank Thomas and his dad. Didn't Frank Thomas's maybe okay, you know what? Arnie might have it right. Cecil and Prince Fielders, who I'm thinking.
Yeah, those guys.
You're right. Okay, but Frank Thomas's dad, I think, did play. But yes, the father and son I'm thinking of is Cecil and Prince Fielder.
The interesting thing is they finished with the same number of home runs for their career.
Hey, who wouldn't want their kid to do that?
Oh, those guys hate each other. That's what I hear.
They do.
They it's like Cecil Fielder wants absolutely nothing to do with Prince. Or the other way, no, it's the other way around. It's the other way around. Prince, the younger one, wants nothing to do with Cecil. So he was a horrible father.
How do I do that? I'd pray for my kids to hate me and never come to my house. They show up all the time unannounced. They don't think they have to knock anymore. Okay, chat room. At what age do your kids have to knock on the goddamn door? You know what? They just walk in like they own the place. My kids are in their mid-20s. I think the oldest is 28 or 29. Come on. What point can me and Mrs. Easy,
I don't have kids of my own, but I've had 3 marriages, and in the third marriage there were kids involved. Admittedly, they were a little bit older, but my belief is they always have to knock on the door. If you can walk in, it's only when the door is open.
My door's never locked, and my kids know that. I've never locked a door in my life.
I'm saying it's wide open. If the door is shut, you have to knock on the door.
Right.
That would be my role. I know that. I know that. Like my brother, I've never really raised a 1-year-old, 2-year-old, and I know that when you're potty training somebody, at like 2 years, you have to be a little bit more open-minded to these things about like walking into the bathroom and stuff. So that
well, that's right. See, my family's all family, so I'm just saying, my door opens up, the dog's it's kids, right? DK Luce is on my side. It is a tough question. I get that. You know, I'm just saying. You know, my kids all live close. It's like, quit coming to my house. I had you. I raised you. I obviously did well enough. You could get out on your own, fly away. Eduardo Perez. That's who I'm thinking of.
Perez. No.
Eduardo, that's Tony Perez's kid. Now, again, I don't think he played.
I remember Pedro Bourbone's kid played.
I forgot. Pedro Bourbon did have a kid.
Yeah, but they were both relief pitchers.
Right. And I just actually, he played quite a bit now that I look at it. Now, again, he didn't have great numbers.
I'm trying to keep all my baseball
stuff. He even played in Cincinnati a few years. Cleveland, he played up to 2006. So
all my baseball stuff around Cincinnati, and we'll have a conversation, right?
Right, but even I'm still not the history guy that other people are. Even though I grew up watching all the Reds and all that, I've just never been a historian. I mean, I've struggled with that. I'm old. My memory's even gone more, but you know, I did grow up with the Big Red Machine, and you know, I started watching baseball in the late '60s. You know, and you know, obviously that's when Bench and Rose, you know, Perez, all that, you know, I mean, the 69 Reds, 68 Reds were actually pretty good teams. You know, but they peaked obviously, you know, in the 70s. I went to a couple World Series, you know, when the Reds played the Oakland A's in the 70s. I was at, you know, I got to go to a couple World Series games back then.
I've only been to one World Series game.
I've been to World Series games. I've been to NCAA basketball championships games. I've been to an Orange Bowl.
I've been to a number of college bowls, but that's being a Southerner, you kind of like those things.
Yeah, they're all around. See, around here we don't have them, you know. But so I've made it to an Orange Bowl.
The only World Series game I ever went to was I saw Game 7 where the Marlins beat the Indians. That was right. That was the only one.
See, I'm one of those, and I know we had that conversation last week about if the World Series was played somewhere else. See, I'm one of those. I would go, you know, I would take advantage of that. Now going, hey, you know what? The Reds aren't in it, but I want to go. You know, I want to go see a World Series.
That was literally it. I was literally in Miami because I was married at the time to a woman who was a big Dolphins fan, and the Dolphins were playing the Bears on Sunday Night Football, and so we had bought tickets to that game, and we were in the hotel. And then because of the game went to Game 7, they pushed that Sunday Night Football game to Monday, so we had to stay in town. We're like, well, what are we gonna do on a Sunday night? It's like, well, there is a baseball game going on. Why don't we go down there to soak up like the you know, the air around it?
Enjoy some.
It turned out we were able to buy tickets for barely over face value and get in. They weren't good seats, mind you, and it was still like $52 or something, but it was.
We have more. The chat room's getting more active. I don't know if it's because of us. Now they're not talking about what we're talking.
They're talking about that the
stupid draft,
that big draft thing with the.
I know, but I would just piss off Cha again. All of them are bitching about slow draft. It drives me crazy.
This is actually like people say to me, it's like, Doug, you need to rant about something. That's actually one of the things I love slow drafting. A 4-hour draft is not a slow draft.
I don't love or hate it. I just love aggravating people. So if people are bitching, I'm going to slow it. I'll slow my ass down. That's all.
No, I would too. It's like for Christ's sake, part of the beauty of slow drafting is it gives you something to talk about. You know, on February 26th.
The word slow is in the name. You know, I mean, it's not called a okay speed draft or a medial speed or but it's called, the word that's slow is in the name, and they still whine and cry.
Oh, I think that the problem is that
as long as the draft is over before opening day, does it matter?
No, it doesn't matter at all. There's a little bit, like I believe that I am a long-term like expert in slow drafting. You know, I have a long-term league that's been around for like 22 years or something. And, you know, what happens in year 11 when a good player goes, I'd love to play, but, you know, his job moved him to, you know, Colombia. Right.
Right.
And so, you know, and so like in that league, you know, we have South America, we have UK, we have Germany, we have a guy lives in New Zealand. It's like the slow draft just works. It's like we can't get people together at the same time. The New Zealand guy is going to be like, and he's a good guy. There's no reason to kick him out other than he moved, right? It's like, all right, so you do a slow draft. So like they're drafting through the night and we're drafting through the day and everybody is fine. And I mean, I told in my home league, we don't even have a clock. We just pick and it works out. We draft through 30 rounds, and it's never taken more than 20 days. Usually it takes about 13 to 15 days. All you do is you go, the problem with slow drafts is the waiting. So it takes communication.
Well, but that's my point. But so what? If you know it's a slow draft, waiting's part of it. Just deal with it.
The difference is like there is a point in today's day and age, you're going to get a ping no matter where you're at on your phone that you're up. Right? In our league where we have no time, if you get that ping, what you'll see is the board will go, hey, I'm at work. I'll be home at 4:00. I'll make my pick by 5.
I shouldn't even have to say that.
No, but
I've got 8 hours. I'll pick before it's over.
But once you do that, right, then anybody that whines is just a whiny bitch.
Well, they're all that. They're all whiny.
No, I mean, no, but they're accepting the fact that they're whining.
Okay, but Doug, here's my. I'm going to stop you. The problem is the people who whine about slow drafts are the same ones that whine about fast drafts.
Yeah,
I don't want to get into this too much because we've already dealt with it. But I've learned that the people who whine at slow drafts are the same ones who whine because the fast draft went too quick, or that even 2 minutes was too long. You know what? You waited 8 picks and you had to wait a whole 2 minutes to make your pick. You didn't know it was coming. Yeah, but shut up. You know what? Give me my 2 minutes. It just cracks me up.
Can they hear me?
I hear you.
Okay, yeah. I got blue, which is not muted.
Yeah, I hear you. Oh, I'll let you know. I do sign language if I can't. Now, I'm gonna go to something else though. That's and again, because Cha-Cha's in the room, I'll harass Cha-Cha. Me and Chris, maybe I brought up the round table. I forget. Sometimes now I have too much going on. I can't remember. But major rules for a league, should they be pretty much in stone before you pay for the league? I get that you change small things maybe. And to me, really small things, I don't even think have to be a majority. To me, if they're bigger than small things, it needs a majority. And I just don't think you should change any major rules once you've collected my money.
Oh, all right. This is I would say in principle I agree with you. Now I have to give you the caveat.
And we're done.
Right?
No, we're done. We'll go next topic.
No, the caveat is I run dynasty leagues, which really never have an off season.
I know you always bring that up.
No, but as a commissioner,
right? Because I'm going
to accept money anytime the guy wants to give me money, right? So there's going to be people that are paid. So the important thing in those things is that you communicate. These are what you're going to. These are what rules are going to be reconsidered. So at the end of our Constitution, there's an appendix. It's Appendix 22, I think, that says next year's considerations for rule changes. So everybody can go to that and go, like, we're thinking about changing rules. Usually the rules aren't that big. Like we had a big problem with 2 teams making too many trades together at the trading deadline. So we decided that it looked like it was helping one team at the sake of the other and caused a little bit of a curve. So we wanted to put in a rule saying you can only trade with one team once a week. That's not a big curb. So like that was on that list. So the guy that paid knew that we were going to discuss that topic, not how it would turn out. So you got to do at least that amount. Does that make sense?
Right. And I'd be fine with that. And again, and I know it's hard because sometimes some people will take a small change in their mind. It's a big change, because we kind of have that thing. We have certain things where we'll even talk about it enough. And then, we'll kind of say, okay, this is a pretty minor change. So we just want a majority, meaning if it's a 12-person league, as soon as that 7th person says yes, then it can change. But then sometimes we'll say, no, this is a big enough rule. It requires 100%, meaning 100% of the people have to say yes, or we don't change it,
We put through the minor rules under what we call it, under Roger's rule, Roger's rule of parliamentary procedure. We put them through as assent decrees. Like these are the things that we just need to change. And we're going to post this for a week. If anyone says no to it, then they're off the board, but they just get consented to. Like we need these little changes. Let it go. The bigger ones will take discussion, and honestly, they're hard to change. It's hard to change any rule.
Right. Now again, and I'm not making fun of it's Cha-Cha in general, but it's the league I'm in with Cha-Cha there, which I actually I'd be one to say I kind of agree with the rule. Cha-Cha, is now talking about changing the length of the league so it ends quicker, so it doesn't interfere with football. And I'm all for it. But at the same time, I also know this is a league where the money was already collected. So to me, the length of the league and some of that should have been here. Here would be my argument. I'm for the rule change. So I have to argue the devil's advocate here. If I wasn't a football guy and I'm only a baseball guy, I would say, no, F you. I want it kept the way it is. I got in this to play baseball. And if the football guy drops out, I have an advantage to win. I want that advantage.
So you're talking about cutting off like 3 weeks of the season. 4 weeks.
Right. So that it can end earlier.
Yeah, I would say that's a major change. I've had experience in the past where people have changed the rule about sometimes there's a thinking like the last week is tough to field. And they make like that 1 week change, and I don't really care about that.
Yeah,
much.
we also want to get it. And I understand also it's not just that, not just going into football. It's that, they expand the rosters and then you don't know who the hell's playing where.
You have the injured reserve problem.
Yeah.
Hey, we got some company.
We got Dan I don't know what Dan's schedule is right now.
Well, he's
Dan,
on the
what's your schedule right now?
I don't think he's fully in yet, but
yet. Are you just getting up or just going to bed or in the middle of the day? What the hell are you doing right at the moment?
We had a snow out today. It's
snow out. You had a snow day?
Yeah, so I went to work for a little bit and went grocery shopping, and now I'm back home. But
I'm not the greatest pot grower person in the world, but how does snow affect the growth of marijuana?
It affects me being on a drive.
Oh, I got you. So, but the plant itself can deal with a little bit of snow.
I grow inside.
Oh, you grow inside. All right, I forgot.
Can you like with grapes and wine? You can like freeze the grapes and make ice wine. Is there like ice pot or something like that where it's emphasized?
Right. Okay. I think if you were growing outside, I mean, what is so if you're growing inside, obviously the the weather around shouldn't matter as much. Obviously, though, if outside is more normal to what you need to grow, then you don't have to deal with as much heating or cooling inside. But is growing outside, would snow kill a harvest at this point?
Oh yeah, real quick.
Ooh. Nobody wants
snow. They can only do it in so many places.
Snowy bud would suck, is what you're saying.
No, it would completely freeze it, so it would be no good.
Damn.
I have from an earlier. I was looking at the chat room from an earlier conversation. I was telling him how hard. One of the things about slow drafts is it's hard to get 16 people together. So Cha-Cha is taking this on to get 20 people together by Saturday. He's got 3 already.
Where's the link at?
It's in the thing. It's like baseball, fan sports, Yahoo. I only bring it up because I was going to talk like me and the guys from Draft for Upside wanted to run a points league based on DFS stats that we'd like people to join, and I wanted to hawk my own league, but I didn't want to get in front of Cha-Cha's thing because he's going.
I think I'm in the Draft for Upside league already.
That's cool. He said that we were going to have a few people, but
is it on ESPN?
I haven't done it yet, but I would like, and obviously maybe I need to prepare next year. Maybe I could do it. I still would like to do a 12 team, and it could be baseball, so it could be 14 team auto draft, 14 teams, and then we have then there's a random pick, and then you manage your team that you're given, just like what happens in real life. You become the new manager of the Cincinnati Reds. You already have players, and you go. I think that'd be fun. I even think to start a dynasty league would be somewhat enjoyable to say, boom, here's an auto pick team. But would you guys find that interesting? Would you be interested in a league where everyone was on auto draft, and then after the draft, 1 through 14, we had ping pong balls, and that's your team? Do you think that would? I mean, I know people say, "Well, no, drafting's the fun part," but bullshit. Here's a team, make it work.
I hate it.
I know. I
got some personal experience. We played fantasy football and baseball from way back at the beginning, and then when we moved to computers, then all of a sudden, like sports that we didn't pay that much close attention to became fantasy possibilities, like fantasy basketball. And the problem was that we didn't know basketball that well, and so we ran a fantasy basketball league for like the first 2 years, we just did that where it's like just let it auto draft, run with your team, and those leagues didn't have staying power because
they don't know. I'm not. But now here's my argument. I'm not saying, unfortunately, that the way you said it made it sound like you just ran with that team. I'm still saying now make trades. Now make this.
Oh no, you have to make trades and stuff. Yeah, you get to do that things, but it's a matter of like the when you play a fantasy sport, there are two things that I want to accomplish. One is I want to win. Two is I want to have like an investment in players I like. And if I wind up getting an auto-drafted team that has players I don't like
did you just hear that throw up in my mouth? People, and I know me and Dan will have this argument. Players I like or hate have no factor in my fantasy baseball team. That's a weakness. I'm sorry, guys. If you play fantasy and you really believe that I like this guy, so I want him on my team. I hate this guy. He'll never be on my team. That is a weakness in your game. Sorry.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. It's a weakness. End of story. It's like the poker player who says, I always play 6-4 because they're my two lucky cards. It's a weakness.
It's not a weakness.
Yes, it is.
No, you can't say like I don't like Aaron Judge. Okay. And in the same vicinity, I can draft JD Martinez or Giancarlo Stanton or whatever. It's only a weakness if you can say for 100% that Aaron Judge is going to be the best of those guys. Well, and you can't say that. It's you're going to say that Aaron Judge is going to be the best of those guys, so you pick him, and you're going to be wrong 1 out of 3 times, probble more than that.
But you can say that about
you don't know.
That's back to the poker person who says, I always play, 8-4 of diamonds because those are my lucky numbers and I love diamonds. And yes, every once in a while they hit a damn flush. Every once in a while you can still get a straight flush.
Well, you sort of
the odds are still that's a weakness in your game.
I do that because in poker because it's important to lose small hands where you show.
No, I don't care if you're lucky. I don't care if your favorite hand is Jack 10 of spades. If you play it every time, it's a weakness. That's all.
When you're playing poker, it's important to show to lose a couple of games at small pots where you show that you just don't always only play the big hands. And it's hard to remember to do that. And so the way you do that is you pick a set. Like I'll pick Queen 3. And if Queen 3 comes up, unless the pot's really big, I'm gonna play that Queen 3.
Again, what comes after the flop has no relevance that you played 2 shitty cards from the get-go because they're your favorite cards. Dan, hold on. I want to hear Dan's opinion on fantasy players because I already know. But Dan, do you think it's a weakness in your game of fantasy if you live and die with certain players?
Yes, 100%. I get it. It's really funny because I'm a big, huge Redskins fan. And for the longest time, I would always draft Redskins in fantasy football, and they would burn me every year. And I finally just stopped doing it. I really did. It took me probably about 3 or 4 years of really just, it was when I first started playing fantasy.
It might be different in football where you're really playing 7 or 8 guys. And, being 12% of the team, it can make a difference. But
no, it's a weakness in fantasy. Back to Judge. If Judge drops, I don't even know. I'm not a Judge guy either. If Judge drops to the 4th fucking round, if I hate him, I'm still picking him for my damn team.
I would pick him too. But part of my dislike of the guy is the fact that every year that guy's going to go 2 rounds higher than I would pick.
Okay, that's different. Disliking a guy's value, that's not a weakness.
No,
saying that guy will never be on my team, even if he's a great value, that's a weakness.
Yeah, if somebody falls to me, I'm snagging them, no matter how much I despise them. I'm just not targeting them or putting them in my draft plans.
Right. Yeah, now, and I'm even the same way personally with players, which maybe this is where me and Dan argued the one
wrong.
And that's where Dan says if someone burnt me a couple years ago, or someone won me a league, I know Dan moves them up and down a little bit that way.
I do.
And to me, that's also can be a weakness because value is value, regardless if I like them, if they help me win or help me lose. None of that should matter at some point. So
can I bring some topics to the table?
Sure.
One.
All right, man. Oh, you guys are killing me. All right. Well, look, I just joined.
This is not my show, and I gave you full carte blanche to do what you want.
Yeah, whatever.
Did you hear that?
So I joined Big John's Keeper League, right, and got handed a team that somebody else had put together with a bunch of keepers I wasn't super huge on, but I made a trade today, and I wanted to get your guys' feedback on it. I traded Jacob deGrom and got back Christian Yelich and Alexander Bogaerts.
I am on record to say that I think that that Jacob deGrom is way overvalued this year. He'll never be worth as much as he is this year. He's probably never going to have a 1.70 ERA again. It doesn't make him a really good pitcher. It doesn't make him a bad pitcher, mind you, but he's just a very good pitcher in the same category as everyone else. You got Yelich, who I'm willing to take a gamble on, and Bogarts is a good player. I think you won that trade. And even if you take the fact that it's from a keeper standpoint, because hitters age better than pitchers, you're better off. What happens to DeGrom after next year when the Mets don't sign him and he winds up going to
the big factor to me, he'll be 31 next year, where this is Yelich's age 27 season. I want to say it's Alexander Bogarts' age 26 season, something along those lines.
I just in the chat room, Chacha says it's a terrible trade, which means that you've won hands down. If he says it's terrible, then you got it. You.
I think. I mean, I agree. I think I don't play Dynasty. That's been more than out there. But yeah, I mean, I don't think it's. I think you got the better end, but I'm not one of those people who thinks win or lose a trade. You won't know, but especially in Dynasty, I think getting the two players you got is going to give you a lot more to do. But I also understand in Dynasty, though, your whole roster could have a factor on that trade too, a little bit.
How many keepers can you keep a year?
Seven.
And how long can you keep them?
For I want to say up to 5 years. This is Big John's league, so he's the one that would know all the rules.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like if it were keep 3, then you're talking about players that may not actually fall into the keep 3, but keep 7. Yelich should stay in that. Bogarts will be borderline. You did fine. You did
right.
Good.
See, I thought Big John was supposed to be on tonight. He told me he'd be on. I know he's been,
he's had surgery.
See, right. I've talked to him since then, and he thought he would be able to make it, but I mean, like I said, Cha-Cha, and again, Cha-Cha didn't say which way, but I'm agreeing. I'm assuming you got the better end of the trade, and that's what Cha-Cha
though you are right. It's hard to actually say like you wanted the trade because we don't know how things are going to transpire.
Because I would say if the other guy was weak in pitching, and maybe has a good enough team to win this year with some pitching, I would rather have DeGrom this year if I'm maybe going to win. And I know some people would argue that maybe, but that would be my thing. I mean, if I thought I needed DeGrom to, tighten up my pitching staff, I mean, that's the problem with Dynasty, or the advantage of Dynasty. You got to make some trades that seem a little crazy sometimes. So, but is that your whole team there listed?
Yeah, I just posted that. That's the second thing I want to talk about. That's my team through 10 rounds. I just made that pick. Probably.
Okay, so this is not the team we just discussed. This is the draft you're doing now.
That's my TGFBI team, the 15 team thing that most of these folks are talking about right now. So,
right, and again, I obviously you're going faster than Lou, who's been whining all day that they're on like pick 4, but
I'm pretty happy with the speed of our draft. It went a little slow, but we've been knocking it about 4
a little. Everyone says the draft could end it in a half hour, and everyone go, went a little slow. But I'm just saying, you already said you would never play in an insta draft, but no draft's ever fast enough. But you really wouldn't. Isn't that what you just did? You just joined a big. John gave you a team. You joined with.
You just asked me about what I preferred.
What?
You just asked me what I preferred.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not saying that I wouldn't do it.
Okay. That was my point. See, that was my next point when we moved on. My point was going to be, would you guys be interested? Because I even think I like the twist of if we did it, everyone starts with a team and you actually could go in and pre-set up your auto draft settings, because my point would be there's a chance you get the team you set up, meaning if you go into auto draft and say, hey, no catcher till the 14th round, I want batter, pitcher, batter. You know what I'm saying? You could set up the way you want it going, because maybe I get that team back. And then my option would be, and then do you do something to where people could then either auction or real money up to a dollar amount, buy the team you want. So that would give you an incentive to auto set the auto draft specifics, knowing that, okay, this is going to be a $50 league and you can bid up to $50.
Can I clarify something in my head? So you're saying I could spend like 3 hours working on my list?
Yeah.
And then I have to spend 100 because it's the best of the teams. Then I got to like outbid everybody to get the team I set up.
Up to $50, let's say.
Then I'll tell you what, I'll let the auto draft list play out.
And that would be fine.
And I think most teams would do that. And let it play out based on ESPN or Yahoo's thing.
But see, then my other thing was the other way. Just let them all auto draft without any settings, and the same thing. Now you got $50 of real money to bid. So yeah, somebody could say, all right, I'm going to bid my 15 because that team's stacked. I want that one, versus another guy might get in the league for $5 because he took a team, one of the last two teams that might've been shittier. I don't know. I just thinking of different ways to maybe get people interested that might not be, or just a way where, like I said, when you take over the Reds in the middle of a season or at the end of a season, you don't get to pick a whole new team. You're stuck with the Reds, and you have to make deals and trades. And then that's how we rank the management out there. That's how we say this guy was good or this guy was bad.
I mean, like when I talk about, I do that. We do that in Dynasty all the time. I turn over teams to new players, but you don't play that. Most people who play fantasy play in a redraft format, and so you pick your own teams, and because that's part of it. And I mean,
but some young people don't want to put in the time to prepare for a draft. So if the team was already pre-drafted, but it was equal to everyone getting a team, that's what I'm saying.
I've said in the past that you kind of don't believe. It's like these dynasty leagues are actually less work than redraft leagues.
What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, you do a little bit all year round.
Yeah, I've never heard that either. But
especially if you play dynasty leagues with contracts. There's so much work.
No, contracts are crazy.
Contract league's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, without contracts, it's like
absolutely burned me out.
I stopped playing fantasy football for a long time, and then I bought into a dynasty league, and the truth is, like, I loved it. It's like my team was pretty much set. I would go to the draft. I'd only draft 4 rounds of players, and then we'd go play the thing, and then that's what actually brought me back to playing fantasy football, was not having this having to learn what everybody else was telling people to do so that I knew where to draft on things. Whereas like baseball, I just sort of know. In our baseball drafts, it's like you the core of your team every year, 13, 14 players are always the same. Or right. Sorry, you have them before the draft starts. So you're picking, and we're auctioning in our league. You're auctioning based on a handful of top end players that get cut out because they're too expensive, and the middle rounds of your stuff. You're actually going, rather than thinking out who the best players, like you're actually going, I need a third baseman, I need starting pitching, like a real team. And you just don't fret on the other stuff. It's like, I find it to be easier. Now, from a commissioner standpoint, it's a whole lot of work, but from a playing standpoint, when I play in dynasty leagues, like most of them are a walk in the park compared to everything else.
Right. All right.
Dan, are you the kind that says at a draft, I won the draft?
Yes. No, I don't necessarily try and look at it from that point of view. I put together a basic blueprint for a team at the beginning of the year that I think is going to be effective no matter what draft I go into. And I play based on that where I'm at. If I have a chance of those players, I try and grab more or a basic understanding of how I'm going to put together a team in terms of I got to have speed guys, or I got to have certain average guys, I got to have certain power guys and these slots, etc. Things. I just have a general blueprint. I can't necessarily say that I go in there saying, "Oh, I have to win this draft," because I'm always just shooting for that certain blueprint of a team. Does that make sense?
No, but you are the one, and I've noticed this because I'm not this kind of person. And hey, you know what? This is the round table. I'm not. I don't post my draft. I could care less what anyone thinks of my draft. I know you posted tonight on Twitter. Everyone's posting right now. I don't get it. And again, I'm not. I get that there's more people that's opposite of me that are excited for their teams. And it's not that I'm not excited or excited. It's just that my point is it's my team. I don't care now. I don't care what Cha-Cha thinks. I don't care what Meckard thinks on my team. Well, I love you all, and I'm glad you're listening to my show. But my point is,
good to get feedback, though.
No. Hold on, Doug. No, the feedback that's important is right now I'm drafting. Who should I take? That feedback I can adjust and change. The team's already drafted. They can't help me now.
I'm not looking for help.
What are you looking for?
You're looking for a hand job? That's my point. Nothing else I can do to change it.
I'm a top style.
But you understand what I'm saying? I don't know. I'm just one of those that when the draft is over, it's my team. I can't fix it. I've even looked at teams and go, "Hell, my team's not that great. I'm gonna have to do some moves because I didn't get what I hoped later in the draft." That type of thing. But I don't know. I'm just not a poster of my teams ever. Of any baseball, basketball, football, none.
Dan, why do you post your team?
Very interesting to me about Twitter, about posting teams, and the thing that I've taken the most out of it is I want to say there's 21 different leagues. There's like 318 different people playing.
Yeah, there is.
Oh, but that's just that draft. I mean, people post their drafts for home ass leagues.
So all these people in these different leagues are posting their drafts, and it just gives you an idea. You're seeing certain players that are going in round 5, and some leagues are going in round 9, and others in round 3, and others. It just depends on who values the player differently.
Okay. Now time out. That's two different arguments, man. That argument is the argument is you enjoy that everyone else posts them so that you can get that information. My point is me posting my team. I don't want people to have my information. I would argue you're right. Post them up there. I'll look at teams and see what's going on. But I don't need input on my team, so I'm not posting it.
Yeah, I won't do the thing. I usually do most of my drafts on Couch Managers, and they have that little like vote the pick thing. And if somebody says I made a good pick, I always feel like, oh man, I did something wrong. It's like I'm part of the conventional group.
I think there's honest people out there that really think, hey, that's a steal or that's a good pick. I've seen that in draft rooms.
Most people don't vote, but it's like if somebody like you'll always see like Adalberto Mondesi get that upvote, like yeah, I like him. You know, like,
I'm just saying on
the same guys. And
I
don't want to be with those.
I would prefer to have Dan and Meckert and Cha-Cha's input while I'm picking. They might be able to help me. I mean that would be important to me. And maybe when I'm drafting on one of these drafts coming up in the next week or two, I might even ask one of them, hey, why don't you pop in with me? To me, that's more than great. That's helpful. That's what I would love that this site's for that. But once my team's picked, it just couldn't help me anymore. Now, in this case, Dan, your team isn't done. There's still picks to go, and maybe someone go, hey, and that's the input maybe I'd be looking for is, hey, you're a little weak in steals. So maybe you might want to consider steals later in the draft. And I'm not saying that based on your team. I'm just, you know what I'm saying? Or someone would say, hey, you're going to have trouble with strikeouts based on that team. That might be information that can help me. And that's why I would post it for that specific question, meaning, hey, here's my team. I think I'm going to need strikeouts later in the draft and try to steal a few. What do you guys think?
And it's really funny you say that because I posted my team this morning, the first 6 picks up till Marcell Ozuna, and that was the first thing out of Lenny's mouth. Oh, you don't have any steals, and I'm like, hey, I'm targeting Peraza. I was targeting
later guys.
You can see he went 1 pick right in front of me before I took Justin Turner. So I was that's why I took Inciarte on the next round. But it was great input. He recognized it immediately. So it's good to hear that kind of stuff from people.
Right. DK Lush has been on my side all night. I don't know what's going on. He must be drinking tonight, but it's been fun. Dan, did you hear any of the show earlier when we were talking about the greatest sports families?
I did not. I was in the middle of that trade negotiation with that keeper league.
Okay, that's important. I'll give you that.
Yeah, I
don't know if you paid attention or that the Boones are very close to having a 4th generation. That's not that they've already had 4 family members. This would be a 5th family member, but a 4th generation has never happened in baseball before. So my question to Doug was, does that make them one of the GOAT sports families of all time? Because I can't even come up with too many 3rd and 4th generations in any sport. And to me, baseball, in my mind, seems to be like it'd be one of the harder ones to even do it in because you're not born. Unfortunately, if your dad played basketball and he was 7 foot tall, so you're born and you're 7 feet tall, you have an advantage already. Where in baseball, you're not born a hitter or a pitcher. You have to train that to be that. So even though your dad can do it, you still have to have a lot go your way to become a professional. So for a family to have 4 generations in any professional sport, and the Boones, we're not even talking, were they all great Hall of Famers, that type of thing? No, but the Boones all were very good players. So what do you think of that? And what do you think, and do you have any other families that go deep enough in any other sport that you would go could maybe be the GOAT family of sports?
If you're looking at it just from a pure standpoint of statistics, you got to say the Bonds. You got to say the Griffins.
No, that's only 2 generations. No, we already had that argument. We did talk.
Yes, I agree with your point. The Boones.
If Barry Bonds' kid starts playing, I might be on your side all the way.
Look, LeBron James' son is a junior in high school right now, and they're already touting him to be super.
Yeah, no. All right, I'm not asking you the most touted family. I don't care. I'm talking families who have already done it. And my first question is in football. Give me a family that's done it. And I guess my point would be more than two. Is there in football more than two that we can even go to in football? The Longs, didn't Howie have two kids that played? But Howie and the one have actually been good players.
The Colquitts?
Huh?
The Colquitts, the punters?
Okay, the guys. There was two guys. Ray Guy made the Hall of Fame, but he had a brother that punted also.
There were the three Hilgenbergs, the centers family, remember?
All right. You know what? That one I'd maybe take because that's a skill position. Have we had any father-son?
Matthews?
Matthews, very good.
Yeah.
But again, still just two generations and two people. My point is, other than skilled players, not punters or kickers.
Tony Dorsett's kid played defensive back for a bit.
Right. We've had brothers play on the line against each other, actually. But my point is, football is a physical game. They're required. You can't just be born. Unfortunately, if some football player
how about the Mannings?
You know what? That is a good one. Archie Manning.
Did you guys not hear me saying that?
What?
Oh, I just came back from the bathroom.
You said Mannings earlier?
3 times.
Oh, speak up, damn it. Okay. All right. Bam. I'd say the Mannings might have the GOAT in football. The GOAT football family.
It's hard to dispute that.
That would be hard to dispute because Archie's not in the Hall of Fame, but Archie actually Archie was good. He just was on a horrible team.
And Eli's got two Super Bowls.
You're right. And then obviously I got to tell you, what's the brother that does that little damn skit now on Sundays? He cracks my ass up. What's the brother's name?
Oh, the other brother?
The oldest brother that got hurt, the one who hurt his neck. That's why they said he'd have been a professional wide receiver if he hadn't got hurt. He played for Mississippi State also. But he does. You guys haven't seen him do the skits that he does on one of the national sports things. They're hysterical. He dresses up and shit. I can't, damn it. Somebody put in there. DK Lucius known everything tonight. Who's the oldest Manning brother, the son that did not play professional? I know he went all the way to college.
Is it Tito Manning?
No, it's not Tito Manning.
Was it Danny Manning? He was a pretty good.
No, it's not player. Danny. I would know the name if I heard it, but all right, we'll go there. What about basketball? What do we have a family? And LeBron James don't count. His kid has to do something for that to count. Have we had any families actually play?
Klay Thompson and his dad. God, what was his name? God,
hello, Steph Curry, McFly, Del Curry.
All right. I'll give you that one.
But
now we also have the point guards for Detroit and his kid.
Oh, Isaiah Thomas
and his son. I would say they're pretty good. But back to the same thing. Do we have 3 generations of any basketball players? None that come to my mind. Back same thing. I just think having 4 generations and being at least okay, if not above average players is pretty damn unique.
It's impressive.
So, all right. I just wondered. We don't have much time, but I have a quick question that came up, and only because we have a little spread out here, this country. 4 city sports. Do 4 city sports? One, I was even trying to come up with them, and then I had a few that I have to question. Do they even count?
Like Toronto.
And I'm going to ask Dan right off the bat. The San Francisco Bay Area, can we count that area as one city, or does any one city in the Bay Area have all 4 teams?
No, I mean you can count it as one area because it's basically all interconnected within 30 minutes of everything. That's San Jose, Oakland and San Francisco.
But the San Francisco itself would not be considered. I don't think they have.
They have the Giants. They have the Giants and maybe the Raiders.
Right, but they
have the Giants.
No, they had the 49ers, but I don't think they have basketball. Where's Golden State's not played out of there?
Don't
so Golden State's played in Oakland, but the new stadium to downtown San Francisco.
I'm not really good on the geography of the area, but don't the Niners play in Palo Alto or something? Isn't that like 35 minutes outside the city?
Just outside the city, a little south of the city.
Okay, my argument on that, Doug, would be if they called them the San Francisco 49ers, I'm willing to say that's where they play, even if they don't. But that's because that's going to come up in a minute. But what do you have hockey out there in San Francisco?
Sharks, San Jose.
San Jose. See, San Jose, I don't
That's
consider.
Yeah.
So because my point is Boston a 4-sport city?
Because Foxborough is not Boston.
Yeah, why wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
I'm asking, is it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's 30 minutes, 40 minutes away. I wouldn't consider Dayton and Cincinnati the same city, but we are 40 minutes away. So if you're saying the Patriots play in Dayton, but everyone else plays in Cincinnati, does that still make it, a 4-city community?
The name on the side of the helmet's all that matters. The Washington Redskins play in Maryland, 40 minutes from D.C. I don't want to hear anything else.
Okay, I'll be fine. But see, Boston is not on the name of the Patriots helmets. That's my point.
But
they don't even. The city doesn't even.
It may as well be.
Well, no, you can say it might as well be, but it isn't. Well, it is not the Boston Patriots. All right. So, what is the best 4-sport city?
It's hard to argue with what Boston has been doing lately.
I would agree. And then I guess what are the other ones? New York, Chicago, LA, Miami. Doesn't Denver now have all 4?
DC has all 4.
I have Washington with a question mark, but you're right.
They have the Wizards.
But Denver, doesn't Denver have hockey now?
Yeah, Denver.
The Coyotes.
Avalanche.
Or the Avalanche. Okay, so Denver has. Detroit has all 4. Philadelphia has all 4, right?
Minneapolis.
Sure.
Minneapolis, St. Paul. What do we got hockey there? Oh, yeah, Minnesota.
The Wild.
Yep, I have hockey. They have basketball, so they would be all 4. See, I didn't even have Minneapolis written down.
Phoenix has got them all now, too, don't they? Suns, Coyotes, Cardinals, and Diamondbacks. Phoenix.
Okay. So I don't need. So how far? You're right. I would say current. If we're going to count Boston, even though they don't, even though it doesn't say the Boston Patriots, I would say Boston right now, obviously. But would we say in a 50-year span? Obviously they've been relevant. The Celtics have been relevant for 40 years or more. The Boston Bruins have had ups and downs. The Patriots, obviously now the last 20 years. And then the Red Sox. So I would agree. New York. Unfortunately, is it hard? You got to put New York up there, right?
Well, the Yankees.
What about Dallas? Does Dallas have all 4 now?
Stars, Mavericks.
Yeah, if you count the Rangers as Dallas.
Arlington's functionally Dallas. It's over there.
Okay. Am I missing any 4? What about? Toronto doesn't anymore, right?
Only if you count the Canadian football.
Well, they don't have a football.
Toronto Argonauts.
Oh, okay. Well, I technically, but you're right. Football, there is no Canadian football team. All right. Thank you, Dan, for keeping me honest on that one. Any other team? I know Cleveland doesn't. I know Cincinnati doesn't.
Ohio's a weird thing. It's like you live there, so it's like Ohio's a bunch of like cities that have 250, 300,000 people in it. And so you guys kind of see yourself as this, the Toledoans see themselves as distinct from the Cleveland.
No, I live Southern Ohio. Fuck Northern Ohio. End of story.
What I'm saying is
does Milwaukee have a hockey team?
No, the Milwaukee guys are all Blackhawks fans. It's one of the weird thing as a Bears Packer rivalry guy. It's weird that when the season's over,
what's Pittsburgh? What's Pittsburgh missing? Basketball?
Yeah, they don't have basketball.
Okay.
No matter what they said in the movie "The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh," there's no team there.
I saw that movie. Is that the one with Gabe Kaplan?
Gabe Kaplan is the coach. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
Me too.
Yeah. Quit telling my age, Doug. Am I missing any others?
I'm racking my brain right now, and I can't think of any that we're missing.
Because I do say LA. So California. Now let's go this way. Is California the only state that has 2 cities that have 4 sport teams?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can put Washington, D.C. and Boston together. Because Washington, D.C. technically is not in any state.
The only thing that would be close would be the Texas, but they have things moved all over the place. You know,
Well, no, we didn't say in Texas. Dallas is the only one. I mean,
I'm saying they could. There's no reason why San Antonio couldn't have other teams. They just don't, because that's the way we put teams out there.
I mean, Denver. Obviously, there's no other city out there that has 4.
Missouri has kind of the combination of St. Louis and Kansas City has more than you'd think.
Right.
Yeah, but they're like 4 hours apart. I used to live there. That's a big.
They're closer than Oakland is to LA. You know.
And what about Philadelphia? So if we're going to rate these, I was trying to come up. My point was to make sure I even could come up with all of them, and I think we probably have. I don't think we've named any others, and that would be what are the 4? What would we consider the greatest sports city over the last 50 years? Would we put Boston 1, New York 2, and maybe Philadelphia 3?
What is Philadelphia 1?
I don't know. I'm asking.
You got to put the Bay Area in there as a collective group for the last decade of what they've done between NBA and then
the A's and the Giants.
The A's, exactly, the Giants, and then you look at the Niners championships of the '80s. Same thing.
All right, I would agree. And then, like I said,
have the Sharks done anything? I'm not really paying close attention to hockey. The Sharks done well. I mean, they had that.
They've made it. They haven't won a Stanley Cup, but they made it there.
Would New York be number 2?
Yeah, they don't have the championships to back it up. I mean, New York is just because it is what it is.
They got 2 football, enough baseball.
I think they got plenty baseball. They've got whatever, and then my argument would be shit. They're obviously more than a 4-sport team. I mean, actually, because they got some sports where they have multiple teams. Obviously, they have the Mets and the Yankees. They have the Knicks and now the Brooklyn.
But the Knicks, Islanders, and Rangers haven't. All those guys have not won in a very long time. That's all right. New York,
All right. So,
I
was just curious. I was just trying. So we technically came up 11-ish, maybe 11 cities that have all 4 sports. And I would assume if we went all the way down to soccer or professional something else, you could probably eliminate a few. But
Miami doesn't have a hockey team, do they?
They have the Florida Panthers play there.
Yeah, I have. You know what? I have Miami written down. Again, it's the same thing. It just depends on the area.
No, they have all the Florida Panthers are in Miami. They play in the same stadium as the Heat play.
Right. So Miami's a 4-sport. Now, is there a Tampa area? Is there any other city in Florida that would have all 4?
There's no basketball team in Tampa, but they do have a hockey.
It's kind of like baseball. It's like I live in that spot. Like we have the I-4 corridor, and so it's like in Orlando we have the basketball team. We're 45 minutes from Tampa. They have a hockey and a baseball team and a football team. If you're like, we're closer than a lot of those things that you're saying. I can get to Tampa. I can't get to the stadium because it's on the other side of it.
So what city or what area would you lump it in then? Would you lump it as Miami or Tampa?
No, it would be Tampa, Orlando.
Because it's in the other side. So you technically could maybe pencil that in as the last of the 4-sport ones.
A few years back, the area was going for like an Olympic bid, and they went in as the I-4 corridor, playing between Daytona and Tampa. We're fairly close. It's like when I go to a casino to gamble, I more often than not drive to the Hard Rock in Tampa, which is like a 50-minute drive.
Right.
It's not that bad.
Do we mention Atlanta?
Atlanta doesn't have a hockey team anymore. They've lost them all.
Yeah, Atlanta doesn't have hockey. I did question them because they had football, basketball, and baseball, but they didn't have hockey.
They had a hockey team that went to Calgary, then they had a hockey team that went to Winnipeg, but they haven't able to hold hockey.
Bastards.
It was correct at one point in our lives.
Then I'm real quick. What would be the best single sport city out there? And that's kind of a rare thing. Meaning, is there a city out there that only has one sport, and that sport they kick ass? Is there
San Antonio Spurs are pretty damn good.
Yeah, San Antonio, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think.
Green Bay Packers.
No, Packers. I would put that up there pretty high. They don't have anything else. That's a good one too. What about baseball? Do we have any single sport baseball teams or
that are good?
Not even good. I'm just even trying to think of. That was my point. Even come up, there aren't, because baseball seems to always fit in when there's other sports.
Well, they just announced the hockey team in Seattle, right? Seattle only had baseball. Oh, they have Seahawks too. That's right.
Right, Seahawks. Because my point is the one that seems to be most likely to be on its own is basketball. That seems to be the one that or hockey. Those seem to be the two that sometimes survive on their own just because.
Memphis?
Huh?
Memphis with the Grizzlies?
Well, but technically they also have the Tennessee Titans.
Yeah,
No, they play in Nashville, which is like 3 hours away.
Well, okay. You might be right there. I guess in my mind that Tennessee's, I don't count.
The Titans are the only team in Nashville then.
What's the drive from Memphis to St. Louis? That's only like an hour, right?
It's 2 hours.
Yeah.
No. The drive from St. Louis to Nashville is closer than Memphis. So I want to say it's 4 hours. Yeah, I used to live in
It
St.
is
Louis.
probably not 4 hours, right?
I thought it was right across the border from not from St. Louis, but from the state of Missouri or whatever.
Now I think what's Indianapolis has the Colts. Indianapolis is just missing hockey, right? There's no hockey in Indianapolis.
They don't have baseball, do they?
They got basketball.
Oh, you're right. They don't have baseball either. What was I thinking? Right. They have basketball and football, but they don't have baseball or hockey. Shit. All right. I don't even know why I brought this topic up. I heard someone today talk about the best city for sports. And in my mind, I went, well, if you don't have all four, I don't even think, could you even, I'll ask that. We only have a few more minutes. So is there can a city that doesn't have all four in any way be considered the best sports city then? Meaning, do you have to have all four to even be in the conversation?
I don't think you do.
Yeah.
Especially really, really good at one particular sport.
Yeah, but Boston's good at all four. That's the problem. I don't think you could compete. Meaning, we came up pretty much. We thought Boston and New York. I don't think we ever came up with the third one. Actually,
I think New York is a little bit iffy because there's a lot. Then
I'm back to then. So then what's
the point being that if you had three teams that were pretty good, you might be able to compete with the second place. You can't compete with what the Patriots have done over the last 15 years. I can't think of an example of such except for. Well, the number two wasn't New York. Number two was the Bay Area.
I mean, Detroit has had decent teams over the last 50 years in almost all four sports.
They had some great hockey teams, some great basketball teams.
Well, they had some. I mean, Sparky Anderson coached them. Back in the day, the Tigers were strong for a while.
But the Lions have been historically bad.
Well, all right.
But those three,
but Pistons have a couple championships. That's a great point. They have those really good Detroit Tigers teams. Recently, they went to the World Series. They've had some pretty good success in Detroit.
Would you put Detroit over Philly then?
Yeah, because Philly hasn't won enough championships. The only other championship they won is that Eagles championship, right? And the Phillies championship 2009. Other than that, I can't think of too many others.
See, like Washington, I mean, like you said, the Redskins were big for a while. They haven't done much in basketball in 50 years. They haven't done much in baseball since they've been back.
No. They have two combined championships in the last 50 years.
Right. I mean,
I'm sorry, no, 3 in the 80s. But
if we're gonna go a 50-year span, Dallas has some championships. The Cowboys were good. Obviously, the Dallas Mavericks had a run. Again, what baseball team are we counting them?
The Rangers.
The Rangers. They had a run. 20 years ago?
No, they won the series twice in 2010 and 2011, back to back.
My argument would be, what's their hockey? Is that the Stars?
Yeah, they moved from Minnesota. Oh, we just lost Dan.
All right.
Yeah,
so Dallas could be up in the top three, maybe. Detroit, Dallas, Boston. Yeah, Dan got booted by his wife, probably.
In Cleveland. Detroit.
Yeah, Cleveland, again, Cleveland doesn't have four teams.
No. Yeah, I don't know what the next one was. I mean, I'm a Chicago guy, and I've purposely stayed away from Chicago because the Cubs have.
Yeah, but the Cubs have been okay. The White Sox in 50 years had a little bit of a run. You obviously had the Bulls that had one of the best runs.
The Bulls and the Blackhawks both had really strong runs.
Their hockey team, Chicago's got to be up there.
I didn't want to be the guy tooting my my hometown above other thing. No, but I'd say like
they won a World Series in the last 50 years. Some of these cities can't say that. Well, that's the argument. Can you count? Can you count both the White Sox and the Cubs? I mean, when you count both those teams in 50 years, they've been competitive here and there. So,
I think they'll allow you to count the Mets and the Yankees. So, sure.
Yeah, the Mets don't help much. One World Series in '69? I'm not even sure. Yeah, I guess that gets in my 69 would get right in my 50-year wheelhouse.
Didn't they win the Bill Buckner play? Didn't they win 2000 too? That was.
Oh yeah, that was the Mets. Yeah, you're right. I just know 69, the Miracle Mets. So, all right. And again, just something that came up, and then I dawned on me that I didn't think, I just thought you had to have 4 sports to be even counted on the list. So, I'm sticking with that.
There isn't really enough. I mean, I bring it up. I bring up the Ohio thing because like Ohio's got like their hockey team in Columbus and their baseball.
Yeah, and again,
ends of the planet, and then you have the basketball teams in Cleveland.
Yeah. See now, but I mean, obviously, if we're going to go by state, that's a whole different.
Well, it's just like Ohio doesn't really have a super huge city. I mean, Columbus is pretty big.
Yeah, but trust me,
it's a bunch of like mid-sized cities that all want their own identity.
Yeah, but we're all competitive. We don't count any of those.
That's the culture of Ohio. If the same thing was happening in Colorado, they'd all go, "We're all Colorado."
I would say if Cleveland's football and baseball teams were in Columbus with the Blue Jackets and Cincinnati, now we're closer. Now we're within an hour and a half of each other. But Cleveland is, Cincinnati, we are all the way at one end, they're all the way at the other end. Like I said, we don't count them as even being a part of the same state. So,
you get every city in Ohio is fiercely independent of other cities. That's
damn right.
But that's not something you see in other spots. Like where I live in Central Florida, when I lived in Atlanta, it was always a strange thing. Like people would say they're from Atlanta when they live like 107 miles outside the city.
Right.
It's like, oh yeah, I'm from Atlanta. Where I live here, it's like people say, oh, we're from Central Florida.
When people ask
me anything from Titusville to Daytona to Tampa,
I mean, I'm technically 24 miles north of Dayton. But when people say, where are you from? I say Dayton. No one knows, when I say my little town, and if you're in Dayton, you don't tell, but in Dayton, you would never say you're from Cincinnati. I'm from Dayton. But when you're talking sports and people say, oh yeah, I know if I'm in a group of people talking sports and they say, hey, where are you from? I'll say, north of Cincinnati. I let them know that Cincinnati is my team, and Dayton's north of Cincinnati. So, that's just, Dayton, we're kind of a weird community. I mean, there's a mixed here, and some of that is because of the old timers. There were no Bengals, so there's still a lot of Cleveland fans in this area, only because that was the only football team and they were very good. People people forget that before there were Bengals, the Cleveland Browns were winning a lot of, championships before there was even Super Bowls. So
I used to spend a lot of time in Toledo. I had like a family, like I was married into a family that we're now divorced from. That was like one of the first families in Toledo. We'd go up there a lot, and I was surprised how many people there were like Tigers fans. Like that struck me as because it was the nature of Toledo was to hate Cleveland for some reason.
Again in Ohio, all the teams we're all competitive. All our cities, no one considers any of those other cities part of them. So I mean, it's just it is what it is. All right, Doug.
Thanks.
We're gonna 2 hours. Me and you stayed pretty active. Dan came in to fill a gapper here, but we just repeated a lot about what me and Nori talked about. But that's fine. That's the whole point of the round table. I get, like I said, every time this week was one of those weeks where people were questioning things, and
I think a lot of people that would normally be on the round table were actually in the chat room, but they're too distracted because of
drafts.
Their TFBGI.
Yeah.
I can't believe it's not yogurt drafts or whatever. And they were too busy waiting 4 hours for their next pick to be part of a round table.
I know that's just the way it is, but that's okay. We had fun. And like I said, next week I could have 8, but I'm, now, like I said, I found new software. Unfortunately, it would allow me only to do 5 plus me if I do it right. 6, where I could actually have 6 boxes and everybody have their own little square.
If you got to the point where, you had regular guests or whatever, and everybody wanted to be on the show, which I don't see why they wouldn't, then you could say like it would actually might be a decent thing to if me and Chad are arguing throughout the week in the chat room to say, all right, this week you're going to have Doug and Chad.
And again, that's come up. If we had certain topics that people knew, and that way they could come on and say it, and blah blah blah. And I don't know, but hey, the show's working. People listen.
I'm not just blowing smoke. I actually find this to be the most enjoyable show.
The key is like you though. I mean, as long as at least one other person shows up, I there's a reason Easy doesn't do shows on his own. I mean, I can talk a long time if I have someone to bounce stuff off of. I've tried the single gig. It's too hard for me.
There are very few people that can pull it off. I remember there was one week, like the show I do is at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning. Tune in, listen to the download. Almost all the 10 o'clock shows had been running till 11:30. And so it's like, oh, I'm going to squat on that next half hour. So I told Lenny, I was like, all right, we're going to go from 10 to 11:30. Now, admittedly, my partner, the professor, has a hard out at 11. So it's like, no, don't worry, you can leave. Right. He's got to drive somewhere to pick up his daughter every other Saturday. And like, I can't get away from that. And so it's like, I'll just go on and I'll add the next 30 minutes. So then we went through there and like, all right, and I have the stuff to talk about. And like, literally, I thought I had a half hour worth of stuff. I went through it in about 8 minutes. I'm like, well, I guess that's enough. I'm going.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
So. All right, Doug. Well, quick plug your show before we go.
Oh, I just did. But the one thing I want to plug is that that my show, in combination with the guys from Draft Upside, are starting a one-off redraft league with a slow auction that you're going to love, and it's a simple points league where you talk about what's the future of this thing. It's like everything you do good is good, and it's based on DFS scoring. The link is on the Lenny Melnick Facebook page. I'll put the link elsewhere. I'm looking.
Make sure you post it a few times in the actual chat room when it's active.
Yeah. I just haven't. I've done it. Well, I'd be like today. I wasn't going to do it because I don't want to get. I want Cha to not make that fill that thing. And I don't want him to blame me running interference. That's the only reason I didn't post it. But
last year I overextended myself because unfortunately the Lenny Melnick they did 3 or 4 leagues, specific to Lenny's name, and then a few others. I ended up every time what would happen is they go, easy, we're too short, join this one. I ended up being in like 5 of them, and then you can't, then it's too many.
This league is exactly I set up. It's like it's weekly transactions, weekly transactions, daily lineups. You can do this. This is the simplest way to play a league, and and it's enjoyable. It's like fantasy football. You play a week head to head, you get one win.
Shoot me a link. I probably am interested. I want to see the fantasy scoring anyway. So,
all right, I'll shoot you a link.
All right, you got my email. You do it to email or do it on my Twitter.
Yeah, I actually know your name now. The first time I talked to you, I had no idea you were.
I don't even know who I am half the time.
You're Sean Spicer, right?
Yeah, that's it. That'll work. I'm amazed. I think Lou's the one. JJ always says my name now. JJ will say, the round table with Easy Kill, aka Mark Pricer. And I think actually Lenny started it. So Lenny,
don't worry about his league. It's like, no, I wanted to see him not get to 20 because he acted like he acted like it was the easiest thing in the world. It's like the guys like George Hudson does. They're like, boy, we've been running leagues for like 15, 20 years, and don't get me wrong, it's really easy to get like 7 guys together. But that slog to get that last 5.
Well, unfortunately, it's I don't care how big your league. There's always one. It's always hard to get that one sometimes.
Yeah, and then what happens? Then you're at 12, and then you're like, all right, I'm going to do the draft on this Saturday. And this guy's like, oh, damn, I can't do that, man. We're going on a cruise. Oh, I can't do that. That's my wife's anniversary, and she'll kill it. She'll kill me. It's like,
all right,
don't get married.
I get it. Maybe we'll talk about that next week. We need to talk about just some, and we will as we get a little bit closer. We have to talk about some draft stuff, and I had a few draft questions, and just with 2 of us, it's a little harder to get into drafting because just the 2 of us have our own opinion. There's not you almost need a 3rd or 4th person because there's so many different opinions. But I appreciate everyone for coming out. The chat room actually started out slow, then got real active. Thanks to DVD Dan out there. Tell Jim I love him. Thanks for coming out. Doug, thanks for being a regular again. Appreciate it. I'm sure maybe it will get a little harder to get people here the next few weeks. So maybe I have to push around a few people or just to get warmer. Cha-Cha's not allowed to come on until it gets warmer in his basement. So
I'll be here as best I can. Just so you have one guy that you can count on for a little while. Right now, there's nothing I'd rather be doing than talking baseball.
Oh, great. And that's what we do. I mean, like I said, I'm not even a baseball guy, but I'll come up. I got a ton of baseball topics that will help me draft. So I have to beat, which I don't know. I think JR Slice, I think maybe went back to work. I missed him. My goal is to only beat JR Slice now. He's giving me too much shit. So I got to try to beat him. So, all right. Lenny, I don't know who's on tomorrow morning. I'm going to say Lenny because we want everyone to tune in. People who don't stick around for, you know what? Hey, it's another topic. But, guys, just because Lenny's not on doesn't mean you shouldn't support the people at 9 o'clock. 9 o'clock is our baseball time frame. And you know what? Come and listen.
There's
Lou gives a lot of great advice. Andrea, if she's on, even today, Cha-Cha after the show. So,
9 o'clock is the flagship time.
Yeah, and I do see people come on, and you can see they see Lenny's not on, and they kick out. It's like, come on, you know what? So pop in at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. I know Lenny's out in Arizona. I don't know if he'll be on or not, but at 9 o'clock, be there tomorrow night. Me and Chris will be on again at 10. Fantasy Fan Sportscast, talking all kinds of sports, and we'll throw in a few football tidbits, and maybe I'll get Chris to talk a little baseball. It's hard to do, but maybe I will. I know he was in a draft with Cha-Cha, so I'm going to talk to him about that. I appreciate it again, everybody. Had a great time. Roundtable again next Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Doug, say goodnight.
Good night.
This has been Just a Fantasy Fan podcast. And to keep your fantasies going, follow us at justafantasyfan.com. Say good night. Good night.
Hello? I was trying to put it up there. It's bit.do